All right. So this is Weird Sports with Nick Fouts. We are a new podcast, and we are going and diving into the weirdest sports stories and the weirdest stuff going on. Episode 1 is going to be about the ski jumping scandal, otherwise known as Crotchgate, and also Penisgate, which you might be thinking, that's a wild episode to have as your first episode for a podcast, but that's how I'm going to do it. 2026 Milan Cortina Olympics had some crazy storylines, but none were as bizarre as Penisgate and Crotchgate, which had two scandals that one was confirmed and one wasn't, and had some weird twists and turns, and let's dive into it. So the first story is just this crazy, weird, and doesn't really make sense, but there's suspensions and real actual consequences that went into this. So in January, 2 Norwegian ski jump coaches along with equipment manager were suspended for illegally altering 2 ski jumpers' suits, and they were suspended by the International Ski Snowboard Ethics Committee, FIS, and the coach Magnus Brevig, the head coach of the Norwegian national team, and Adrian Levington, the team's suit technician, were caught on video anonymously by YouTuber, and it was on YouTube, they were basically inserting illegal stitching into the crotch area of the suits of 2-star jumpers, which is wild and doesn't make any sense. But I'm going to dive into it and give some sense into it. I don't know if there really is sense. But that these 2-star jumpers one of them was the reigning Olympic champion, Marius Ledvik, and Johan Andre Forfallen. After the suits were already past inspection, they altered the suits during competition at the World Championships, which is crazy. And the athletes were suspended 3 months in the summer. This was back in 2025 in the winter. And the coaches were suspended 18 months, which ended up happening because they were suspended 18 months because of which ended up bleeding into the Olympics. So, which is crazy, and it doesn't make any sense, and it's unreal, and it's one of the wildest stories ever. Now, the why. The reasoning they did this is because the skiers want to fly further. So, when they're flying in the air, they're flying like a flying squirrel, and when they're flying further, what ends up happening is if you have more surface area, then you have further to go. You have it's like a wind tunnel basically, and then the bigger it's the metaphor that most people use is the bigger the sail for a boat, the more the sail can go faster, the more smooth the ride is. And it's the same with ski jumping, and so that was the main thing. That's why that they did this altering of the suit, which the way they did it was all shady and very interesting, and they had real-world consequences. Now, the athletes aren't able to wear ski suits that are more than 400 centimeters larger in the surface area of their body. So these have to be skin tight. The ski suits cannot be they have to be pretty skin tight, and they can't be thick. They have to have no extra. That would be an extra advantage of that. Now the athletes were they had them altered by the coaches, and that's why it's such a big scandal. They were cheating, and it's their own crazy scandal. And there's been tons of sports cheating scandals, but this is one of the weird ones because of where they were altering it, right at the crotch. And that's why it's been Crotchgate. It went viral on the NBC Olympic coverage, and it's crazy. Now, recent studies by Frontiers in Sports and Active Living have shown a couple of centimeters of enlargement, specifically in that area or just anywhere, can add 5 meters in jumping length, which is crazy to think about because you're thinking no way can that actually add specific length in the ski jump, but it does. And these studies showed it, which is another crazy and wild rumor that's gone around. but it's actually been confirmed. Excuse me. Now, Crotchgate had its own special place, and it was more of a real world it was a real world situation, and it didn't affect the two athletes. They were able to compete, but they didn't. Their coaches were not able to. And Norwegian ski jumping is like the Super Bowl for America. You know, like ski jumping is a huge deal, and the Norwegians actually had the most medals and gold medals at this Olympics, and so it was a really big deal that they couldn't. You know, they had their coaches potentially taking away some other medals. Now, there's another wild rumor in the ski jumping world that's related, and it doesn't quite connect, but it kind of does connect, but it hasn't been confirmed, so which is crazy, but it's very, very weird. So, basically, a renowned plastic surgeon, Professor Alessandro Latara, who's a doctor and professional and has done over 3,000 plastic surgeon procedures, said, and I quote, "However, I can say that I treated him last month, used a generous dose of hyaluronic acid." So, the rumor was that skiers were getting hyaluronic acid injected into their penis, and therefore enlarging it and making it easier for them with the enhanced crotch area to go further and farther and potentially win gold medals. Now, the acid makes the penis larger just in a few minutes, according to Latara, who runs his own practice and is world-renowned. Now, this is ridiculous, and he made all these claims like right before the Olympics. It went crazy viral, and people couldn't believe it. And like U.S. skiers were baffled by these claims and were hoping they weren't true, but they wouldn't be surprised with the sport after all these scandals. And it doesn't quite make sense. But anyway, let's go into it. And this Professor Latara, he's Italian, and the Olympics were obviously in Milan. So it was a crazy situation. Now, the athlete that Latara performed on the procedure, according to Latara, this is another wild claim, the locker room situation was what he was nervous about, which made him get this plastic surgeon and the injection, which, I don't know, we've all heard the rumors about the Olympic Village and all the running out of condoms, the 10,000 condoms in 3 days. So this could be real with this reasoning, but it doesn't quite make sense on why this professor of plastic surgeon, I guess, is making all these claims, and they haven't been backed up. And this story came out when he was interviewed by Latara, was interviewed by a German newspaper. A tabloid magazine, Bild, published a story about these rumors. Now, they were not confirmed, but they went viral, and it caused so much uproar and weird, storylines on, comedy and, all social media. It blew up, but it got so big that the communications director of FIS commented on it and said that they didn't have any concrete evidence for these claims, and it didn't make any sense. Now, experts such as Christopher Roy, the University of Virginia Tech in ski jumping, experts such as Christopher Roy, a professor of aerodynamics and physics, University of Virginia Tech, said in ski jumping, basically the main goal is to maximize your lift while minimizing the drag. So how I see it is by injecting hyaluronic acid into your penis, you basically go further because you're expanding the surface area, which makes you go further and it gives you more aerodynamics. This is another crazy twist into it, and everyone's has a comment on it, and it's very interesting. Anyway, but this story has so many weird layers, and it doesn't make any sense. Now, acid, but it doesn't make any sense, and that's what this show is going to be about, is all these weird stories that don't make any sense, and you don't want to probably know about it, but you do, because it's so fascinating and it's so funny. And stay tuned for the next week. We'll be diving into the Atlanta Hawks' recent canceled Magic City themed night at that's named after their infamous strip club in Atlanta. So that will be episode 2. But thanks for listening, and enjoy your day.